vegetables on it. A notification popped up. All guest access removed. For the first time since that message hit the group chat 2 nights earlier, the quiet coming off that house didn't feel like something I owed anyone an apology for. By Friday afternoon, I was in Fort Wayne with Rachel and Sophie at her parents' place. Sophie's fever had dropped a little overnight, and she'd managed to keep down a few sips of water, which felt like the first good news we'd had in 3 days. Rachel sat with her on the guest bed while I helped my mother-in-law chop vegetables for soup, trying to keep my hands busy so my mind would stop circling back to Columbus. At 3:17 in the afternoon, my phone buzzed with a motion alert from the doorbell camera at the beach house. I opened it without really thinking, and there they were. 3 vehicles pulling into the driveway. Marcus in his Tahoe, my parents behind him in Robert's Buick Enclave. Behind that, a cousin's SUV towing a little trailer packed with beach chairs and coolers. 13 people climbed out over the next few minutes. Suitcases, grocery bags, pool floats still half inflated, 2 dogs straining on their leashes. I watched it all unfold in silence on a 6-inch screen while standing in someone else's kitchen 5 hours away. At first, they thought the keypad was broken. I could see Marcus punching in numbers, trying again, shaking his head. My mother had her phone out. My father was walking the perimeter of the house, checking for a side door that had never existed. The calls started almost immediately. I let the first 2 go to voicemail. My mother's voice, confused more than angry. "Daniel, the keypad isn't working. Call me back." Then Marcus, sharper. "Very funny. Send me the new code." Then my father, the one that actually got under my skin a little. "Your mother is standing in the heat. Fix this now." I sat there with the phone in my hand, feeling the old pull to just make it stop, to send the code, to smooth it over one more time the way I always had. My parents were in their 70s. There were kids in that group. I didn't want anyone actually stuck or unsafe. So I sent one text to the whole chat, nothing more. "The house is closed. There are hotels in New Buffalo and Michigan City." I told Dad yesterday. I even named 2 hotels I knew had rooms, because whatever else this was, I wasn't trying to strand my own family in a parking lot with no plan. That's when Howard walked over. Howard's our neighbor across the road from the beach house, a retired mechanic who's lived there longer than Rachel's parents owned the place. He doesn't get involved in family stuff, generally keeps to himself, but with 13 people and 3 vehicles blocking half the street, I guess he figured somebody should say something. Marcus asked him if he had a spare key. "I don't," Howard said. "Daniel took the guest code out yesterday." My mother told him this was the family vacation house. Howard corrected her, calm as anything. "It belongs to Rachel. Her folks owned it before her." I heard about this part later, secondhand, but apparently that one sentence landed harder on Marcus than anything I'd said on the phone the day before. It wasn't an accusation. It was just a fact nobody in my family liked saying out loud. Howard added, "Daniel said the place was closed because his little girl was sick. Figured everybody already knew that." Nobody in that driveway wanted to admit they'd known and come anyway. Somewhere in the middle of all this, one of the dogs knocked over a cooler and sent ice cubes skidding across the gravel. A grocery bag split open and a package of frozen burgers rolled down toward the mailbox. And in the middle of the chaos, one of the kids, I think it was my cousin's son, asked, loud enough for the doorbell mic to catch it clearly, "Uncle Marcus, I thought you said this was our house." Marcus didn't have an answer for that one either. Back in Fort Wayne, Rachel asked if I wanted to call anybody back. "Part of me does," I admitted. She didn't push me toward or away from it. She just reminded me gently that Sophie had finally fallen asleep for the first stretch in almost 2 days. A few minutes later, my father called again, and the ringtone startled Sophie awake. She started crying, this thin, exhausted cry that broke something in my chest a lot faster than any voicemail from my dad ever could. I put the phone on silent. That night, Marcus posted on Facebook, "My brother locked our elderly parents and several children out of the family beach house after they drove 5 hours. Some people forget where they came from." No mention of Sophie's pneumonia, no mention that Rachel had asked them to wait, No mention that the house was hers, or that I'd told my father the day before, or that I'd texted them 2 hotel names the second they arrived. Within an hour, relatives I hadn't heard from in months were messaging me. An aunt I actually respect called and asked, "Couldn't you have handled this differently?" I started to wonder if she had a point. That night, Sophie woke up coughing, hard enough that I sat her upright against my chest to help her breathe easier. My phone kept lighting up beside the bed with messages I didn't read. Sophie pressed her face into my shirt and murmured the only thing that mattered. "No loud people, Daddy." I turned the phone off completely. The locks, I realized, had been the easy part. Saturday morning, Sophie's breathing hadn't improved the way the doctor had hoped, so we took her back to urgent care in Fort Wayne. While Rachel filled out paperwork at the front desk, I sat in a plastic chair, scrolling through my phone, and found Marcus's post had already been shared into the extended family group, the one with aunts, uncles, and second cousins I mostly only saw at funerals. Somebody had commented calling me ungrateful. Somebody else had used the word cruel. I sat there in that waiting room seriously considering reopening the house the following week just to make the noise stop. Rachel came back, sat down beside me, and must have read it on my face, because instead of arguing with me, she reached into her bag and pulled out an old blue binder I hadn't seen in years. I didn't even know she still had it. Inside were receipts, bank statements, copies of checks, screenshots of old text messages asking for loans, notes she'd kept, mostly for our own taxes and budgeting, tracking every dollar I'd ever sent my family's way. "You keep remembering what they needed," she said, flipping it open on her lap. I kept remembering what it cost us. We went through it together, right there in the waiting room, waiting for Sophie's name to be called. The total came to roughly $226,400 over more than 20 years. Cash, materials, direct expenses, and that wasn't counting the thousands of unpaid hours I'd put in with a toolbox in hand. 3 memories stood out as we went through it. In 2008, Marcus came up $34,000 short on keeping his house after a business deal fell apart. My father told me plainly, "You're doing well. Your brother has children." Rachel and I pulled money out of savings we'd been setting aside to redo our own kitchen. Marcus promised to pay it back within 2 years. He never did. A few months later, he bought a used boat. In 2016, Rachel and I had finally planned our own vacation, our first real one in years. 3 days before we were supposed to leave, my parents' garage roof started leaking. My father didn't want to hire anyone. Daniel knows how to do it. I canceled the trip, spent 6 days on that roof, paid for the materials myself. Rachel spent what should have been our anniversary week alone in an empty house. When I apologized afterward, all she said was, "I know you think they need you." And then there was the beach house itself, slowly turned into something that wasn't really Rachel's anymore, even though her name was the only one on the deed. The first summer after her parents signed it over, my mother invited relatives without asking anyone. Nobody objected. I didn't object. And it just became the pattern after that. Marcus brought friends for weekends. My mother kept her own linens in the closet like she lived there. My father called the master bedroom our room. Rachel had quietly become a guest in her own family's house. Sitting there in that binder's arithmetic, I realized the money wasn't actually what hurt the most. What hurt was understanding that I'd spent years buying peace with my parents, using Rachel's time, Rachel's patience, and money that should have belonged to our own small family. I'd always told myself I was the one holding everyone together. I kept telling myself I was helping my family, I said out loud. Rachel didn't look away from me. "You were," she said. "You just forgot Sophie and I were part of it." It wasn't said to wound me. It was just true, and it landed exactly the way true things do. When the doctor cleared Sophie to go home with a new round of medication, I carried her out to the car. She was too tired to even react when I buckled her into the car seat, her head lolling to the side, breath still a little too fast for my comfort. I thought about 13 people trying to walk into that house with dogs barking and suitcases banging against door frames and kids running down the hallway while a 2-year-old struggled to breathe in the next room, and any last doubt about the locks disappeared. That evening, once Sophie was settled, I sent one more message to the family chat. We need one family meeting. 3 weeks from Saturday at my house. I'll explain everything once. After that, the new rules are final. My father replied almost immediately. Good. You owe everyone an apology. I looked over at the blue binder still sitting open on our kitchen table. He still thought I was inviting them over to surrender. 3 weeks later, Sophie was almost back to herself, chasing our neighbor's cat along the fence line and demanding a snack every 20 minutes, like a kid who'd never been sick a day in her life. Watching her run around the backyard made everything that came next a little easier to get through. The meeting happened on a Saturday afternoon at our place in Columbus. Rachel kept the food simple: burgers off the grill, coleslaw, a pitcher of sweet tea, bottled water lined up on the porch railing. Nobody showed up expecting a cookout. They showed up expecting an apology and a reopened beach house. Marcus still hadn't taken down his Facebook post. My father sat down at the patio table first, arms crossed, and got right to it. Before we eat, your mother deserves to hear what you have to say. I didn't argue. I walked around the table and set a small stack of papers next to each adult. The first page had one line at the top: what we paid, what we provided, and what changes now. I told them straight out I wasn't asking anyone to pay a dime back. I just wanted it said, once, out loud with numbers attached.